Welcome to What's Left, a weekly political discussion challenging the mainstream left. I'm Eduardo with co-hosts, teacher and socialist Andy Lipson, and community organizing socialist Kenny Cepeda. We are online at what-s-left.webnode.com. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share your favorite episode wherever you found this episode. And turn on your notifications. Thank you. So today, we've decided to do an end of a year episode on reflections of this year, 2020, which will go down in history as one of the most pivotal years in what of the century, I'm sure.
Most bullshit year.
So we've decided to do this reflection, and we'll do it in two parts. We'll do it what were some of the highlights or some of the lowlights of the personally for us individually, and what were some of the lowlights or best moments of this year politically. And that's how we'll do this episode. Yeah?
Yep.
All right. So with the personal, we'll start off with the hardest moments or lowlights of this year. Kenny, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so lowlights for 2020. I think like many people, I had plans. I was supposed to travel through Europe with my mother, a trip that we've planned for years. For whatever reason, it never happened. And we had tickets, and we were supposed to leave at the end of March, actually, a week after shelter in place started. And so obviously, Europe had started shutting down. So our trip got postponed indefinitely. We're still stuck with our vouchers. We don't know when we're gonna use those. So I travel a lot, at least a couple times a year, and so this year I haven't been able to do that. So that's kind of a bummer for me personally. I would say maybe another thing that happened this year is that the toll of shutting down has made a financial impact on me and my family. It's not quite dire, but it's still significant. So it is challenging. My brother and his wife got COVID, and we lived together. So dealing with that anxiety was also like a low light in being in quarantine. Just because of everyone's anxiety as we were learning more and more. And so, those are some of the lowlights. And I guess just right before this show, I found out that a person I'm really close to was diagnosed with a potentially life-threatening health issue. So that's just to kind of end the year on that same pattern, I guess, of bad news and bad things happening. So I think those are kind of the major things that have taken me through the depths this year. Who wants to go next?
Is it me? Yeah. 2020 really, actually, it sucked almost immediately. I will start with, I got bit by a tick that was like painful. And I actually thought for a while I might have Lyme's disease. That was like January 2020. So it was just like, it was already indicating something was going to be up. And I took a bunch of antibiotics, and it looks like that didn't quite happen. But probably the hardest thing, the worst thing I would say is there's two things, and they were both in February. The passing of mine and Brandy's dog, Naboo. We had really hoped to kind of get married with him and just live our life out with him. He was only 8 years old, and he was such an amazing dog and a great traveling companion for me. And he worshipped Brandy, and he was like a familiar to Brandy. But I really appreciated that in a very short period of time, he let me into his family, into his pack. And it was a big blow to lose him in early February. And so that's probably the biggest. Honestly, that's the biggest thing. And then, of course, in February was also the month that I got cellulitis and was hospitalized for like 2 weeks. I guess there's a way that I could have died. And people remember I had that device, and things like that after the whole surgery and stuff. That sucked. Although I would almost put there were some silver linings in that, because I actually believe that that also happened just after we lost Naboo. It really forged the center. It helped cement for me the fact that I was prepared to commit to my relationship with Brandy and want to get married. And then there was just the shutdown. And really, I would just say probably the biggest thing was the loss of my job. Like, I kept my job, but it was like you take all the good things from teaching that exist, which are the relationships you have with the students, the struggle you have with the students, the social society you have with the students in the classroom, and then with their parents, who are often willing to share their most treasured possessions with you, and are willing to, like, talk with you about how are we going to help that this kid go forward. And I feel like that was all just stripped away from my job this year. And it really, actually, it was like, how they say COVID has something, one of those things is you lose your sense of smell and therefore possibly lose your sense of taste. That's really what happened to being a teacher for me. It's like a sense or two senses were stripped away. And so it's like the job lost any taste. It was bland, and very shallow, and I worry for the future. But that was just the personal feeling of feeling like my job sucked, and like not liking my job, and not even liking any of the so-called successes that might happen. I've been very conflicted about it, because I'm not very good. If students tell me that there's something they like about this, I feel very conflicted about me having won them to this way of educating. I would say then there were personal relationships that were stretched and probably lost for now by virtue of the political things that came up. So some of the personal relationships I had with people who I would consider comrades, I'm not happy about that. But Allison talked a little bit about it, but I didn't experience as much as I could have probably, but I did experience some losses from that, and that was no good. No, I think that's it.
Well, the challenges I faced this year, on a personal level, I think was a loved one of mine having gotten into an accident in January, being hit by a vehicle on his bike, and that was difficult for me, because I had to attend to a lot of personal needs and be supportive emotionally and mentally, and just sort of just being there for him, and then the challenge of working around a learning at home sort of environment for my nephew, which turned out to be beneficial for him, because it was a lot of individual attention so that he could improve academically. But it did take some work around our life in the beginning to organize ourselves so that he could have enriched day. So that meant everyone had to play a part, and so it meant shifting our lives a bit for him, because we don't just sit him in front of a tablet or a television, or he doesn't even know how to use YouTube or game. So he doesn't do anything on screen. So there's a lot of physical and enriching art, academic, and all sorts of activities we had to set up. So that caused a shift, which was fine, but it still caused a shift. And then I think that that what was interesting was my the the incident that happened with me with the police, where I was just sitting in a vehicle, and the police officers decided to take us out of a vehicle. It was parked. I was with my deaf friend, and we were doing nothing. We were just talking, um, and the police officer assumed that we were up to something, which wasn't all right. And let's see, and what else? I think the challenge I just faced wasn't so much personal directly. It was sort of my my sentiment around how children that I know, families, friends, and the struggles of being isolated. I consider myself to be an introvert, so I didn't feel much of the effects of the pandemic because I'm a homebody. I love being at home, writing, and I usually do things alone anyhow. I go to the museums. That was a challenge, by the way. Yes, and I stay at home, garden, and write and read and do a lot of things by myself. So I didn't feel any effects socially, but I know my nephew's cousins who are 7, 8, 15, and the oldest I think is 19. There were challenges there for them being at home, cooped up as a family. Also, my neighbors' children, I'd see them in their backyards, sort of playing by themselves, and really sad seeing them just craving attention and their parents busy having to work. That was a challenge for me to see all of that, and the families I know in general that I keep in touch with, that I write letters to, that I've known these kids from elementary school when I was working at an elementary school, and I stay up to date with them, and they write back about how bored they are. They'll text me or families, and that's a challenge. But it wasn't anything direct. But it's hard seeing that for myself. Yeah.
I would definitely want to add some of the I appreciate what you said about the introvert thing. I think of myself somewhat as introvert, but I have to say the loss of like being with you two, like in the same space, and like being able to drive places. Like I really appreciate being able to continue these episodes, but I think I would have liked to be able to do some of our episodes in the same room together, and see each other and be more regular with hugs. And that's true with like Hema and Brian and Darylyn, my friends, so like Hema and I would want to go to Chevy's, and we kind of do, but not as much, and it's just, it really is cut into that socializing that I really like to do. And particularly I like to drive in a car with somebody and just drive and talk, and I just can't do that as much. And so that's been hard. And then jujitsu, like not being able to do jujitsu, that was a big deal. So like I really enjoy that. Like it's just such a physical release, and it's such it so takes your mind out of yourself, and then just the camaraderie. And I'm not necessarily the greatest friends with all the people at the gym, but in many ways I love all of them, because the ones I trust at least, and that's a lot of them, because you do put your body on the line with them, and you have to trust that if they're going to get you in a bad position, they're gonna release it if you tap, things like that. So it's I miss that. I really do miss that. So that, and I haven't gotten that back yet, and it might take a little while. So that's another personal loss.
I mean, now that you bring that up, I think of my dancing, going out to dance al Rio, especially in the summer. That's something I always look forward to dance to live music in the patio of El Rio. And that was lost. Just got a little taste of the, when in March, and then it's gone, and it's hard now to get people to go dance because it's a social activity, and get together, and everyone's super scared, and you know, again, you have to. It's just hard, and yeah, so for me, it's been a challenge because I am a little more of an extrovert. Like I'm always my mother, she knows that my family, they know that I'm not at night. I get anxious. My job is at night, so I'm used to being active in the dark, and that's like pretty much gone. There's no life after 9 p.m. outside anymore.
Yeah, and I was one more thing I remember, like adding these. One last thing for me was just when the borders closed to so I could to Mexico, so I couldn't travel back home for the summer, because you mentioned the summer and it brought to me how I couldn't go back home for the summer. And then once the borders did open, my passport um, um, expired. Anyhow,
I'll just say it's a funny though how again you and Brandy are so similar, because she's definitely enjoyed some elements of the isolation that has been enforced on us, because she likes to be able to be at home and just recover there. So you sound just like her again.
telling you, Andy. I'm telling you. All right. So let's focus on maybe some of the positive or maybe best or highlights of this 2020. What maybe were uplifting moments for us this year in the year of 2020? So I'll start off. I think the just on a personal level, just the amount of work I have been able to do to write. I speak of this non-published book that I'm writing away. It's probably going to take me 10 years, like Roots. Even though it's going to be this thin. No, I did. I'm a perfectionist, so I have lots of drafts, and I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. So all of this time has given me a chance to write. And so that's on a personal level there. That was the best thing for me this year. The second thing I would say is I think watching my nephew grow before me, just seeing him develop, expand his language, what we talk about, and because he doesn't have any school, I had to do a lot of filling in. He subscribed to children's magazines, and we discuss many challenging topics such as death, and that was cool because for the Dia de Muertos, we discuss what it means. It means your body stops functioning, and we discuss sort of different ways. And we buried a little bird outside in the yard. He found, and that was just the discussions we've had, the art that we've done, and seeing him also play music by Beethoven, one of his favorite composers, and sending out letters to his various pen pals together, doing that, and the fun times we just spent all over this neighborhood, riding on our bike. That was some of the most just highlights of my time with him. And thirdly, the learning pod that we created. Friends of mine decided to form this learning pod for the children, for my nephew, their children, and we organized ourselves so that we could again compensate for the lack of social stimulation they were missing out in school, and academic as well. So I think those were the personal highlights of this year.
So personal highlights. Well, yeah, there were losses, obviously, like in things that I wanted to do, like dancing, like socializing. but I've been able to create stronger bonds with certain people, and so I think I have a more rounded group of friends that I can rely on for many things. Mainly because we work together. That's a bit more on the political side, but um, yeah, just meeting and getting closer to amazing people. Also, family. Before the pandemic, my family and I wouldn't see each other at all. We would see each other maybe once a week. Um, and yes, at the beginning we were anxious and we were kind of actually isolated within our own household. But after my brother got COVID and we started rethinking the anxiety around this, we've actually enjoyed each other's company and become more connected. And my family is extremely important to me, and so there's been a sort of evolution within our bonds, like maturity, emotional maturity that we've been able to achieve. And so that's extremely important for me, because again, they're the people that know me the best, and I'm more and more being able to be more open with them about everything, the full expression of myself. Um, and so that's really rewarding, as well as just having conversations about politics. It's a little political and personal, because they're my toughest customers probably, but which is good. I enjoy that. And hiking, I that was something I wanted to do before COVID. I wanted to buy a car and expand that part of me, but for whatever reason I couldn't get it done before COVID. But as a byproduct of this whole thing, I go hiking 3-4 times a week.
Wow.
And because I got a car, which I didn't before, I didn't have, and because of COVID, because of the work I do, I had to. So it's expanded actually my world a bit. Kind of funny, because before I used to kind of go between the same spots, same people, but it's forced me to expand and look outside. And so that's been extremely rewarding, grounding, especially as we deal with all this, enclosure. Like I actually, I haven't been like secluded for too long, except when we were sheltering in place, or quarantining for because my family had COVID. Um, but yeah, I mean, also somewhat personal and political. I was able to launch an organization, a community organization, and I've learned so much about organizing, about creating an organization, dealing with other community members, and so I've actually, I think I've done a lot of growth during this period, personal growth. So that to me, it's very important. And yeah, I mean, I guess maybe one other thing is that the nature of my job, yes, it has changed, but now we have a different set of stressors where before we used to deal with a lot of anxiety working in the restaurant industry is go 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 every night, every weekend, and that creates a sort of post-traumatic stress. You go home and you're still thinking about things because is this super high stress environment. And so again, there's a different set of stressors now, but that constant like survival mode is not on me. It is in a different way, obviously making an income and stuff, but not on every night. Not going to war every night. To use a metaphor. So yeah, I'm a little more at peace. I guess overall, I've been able to explore the inner me and like find pleasure for myself during this time.
Yeah, I think most of the things for me that are that are great about this year have been in relationships. A lot of it's going to be about Brandy. I really do. As much as being in the hospital sucked in February, it really is. It was a wonderful thing to go through that with her, and she was a huge support. And to really just let her into that, like for me to be open to how much she was prepared to come in and help, and ask for that. But then, and to go through that together. We were both losing a dog together. She was losing her best friend, really, Naboo, and then she was possibly losing me, and she was frightened about that. And uh, I have it was a scary time for me, but I have really fond memories of going through that with her, uh, back in February. And it really led to the clarity about, let's get married, essentially. Um, and I really enjoyed two things: were working with Hema um, to figure out the ring. I wanted to get Brandy, because there's no way I was going to figure it out on my own. So Hema was central in helping me get the right ring. A friend I also consulted a friend of Brandy's, but Hema was really the linchpin, and doing that together with her. Although there were moments when I really upset her, which she let me know about, uh, was really great. But of course, and to actually be able to give that to Brandy and propose to her, that's a highlight. And I love the fact that I get to, for the rest of my life, get to put to her that when I proposed to her, her response was like not really excitedness. She was like, oh, she didn't really know what to do, and she had to go to sleep. And I love being able to put that on her, like, in this magical moment of proposal, her response was to be kind of like, oh my god, I don't know what to do, and I got to go to sleep. And so that I just have a very that really makes me happy, actually. But now she's very excited about the marriage, and I'm glad that we're going forward now. We've got set a marriage date. That's a big thing for me. So all of those developments, and also two things. One is her and I getting better in conflict, not meaning less conflict. Actually, I would say more conflict, more sharpness, more like moments where I'm gonna go at her or she'll come at me, but we engage, and then we clarify and deal with it. Like, that has been really, I did not know I could do that with a partner, with at least a girlfriend, or romantic partner, I guess. And I haven't in the past, and I've definitely been able to do that with Brandy, and it gives me a lot of confidence that we're going to be able to just kind of do this the rest of our lives. Is love each other and be in conflict at the same time. And I actually do believe I learned that with, like, my friend Brian, which both of you guys know Brian, and I'm very grateful for the fact that in building my relationship with Brandy, it hasn't lessened my relationships with people like Brian, with you, Eduardo, with you, Kenny. It it it's not like, I mean, I think I was worried about that at one level, but it hasn't been that way. So that's really really gratifying to me to be able to know that you get to have it all. You can have all those relationships, and it doesn't about taking one and then losing others. So that's great. And the last thing I'd say, actually, this might seem weird, but so I've been seeing a counselor for about 14 years. I think I'm on 15 years, right? But I quit for a period in August because I did not want to do counseling through Zoom. I was just fed up with Zoom, and so I was just like, I'm not doing it. And he understood, but I am glad I just got back to it this December, and I'm glad I went through that period of realizing that even though I've been doing, it's not like I think I have some sort of, there aren't necessarily unresolved issues, but I'm glad I got the clarity to say, you know what, I need to keep doing this. I need to continue to have some place to talk about my emotions that are just for me, and to figure out how I'm going to do it. Like, we're not doing it in person. I'll do it over the phone, but I'm not doing my counseling in an electronic box. I just not going to do it. And I'm glad I got that clarity. Oh, and Kismo. I mean, so Naboo we lost, but I am really grateful for Kismo, our new dog. He's mostly poodle. He looks like a poodle, and I'm very grateful for that. I mean, he's a great addition to our lives. He's definitely different than Naboo. Naboo was like a proper, well-behaved dog. Kismo is a dog that will bite at you if you get too near his food bowl. So but but he's very loving, and I, I'm glad we have him, but it's a different experience, and I'm glad it's different. It's not. We can't do Naboo ever again. Although there'll be no other Naboo. But Naboo would have been at our wedding. Gizmo will not be at the wedding. I can tell you that. Kenny will be at the wedding. Eduardo will be at the wedding, but not Gizmo. So is there anything else? There actually have been several good things, but they're mostly in terms of relationship, and then I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I should say that's good that you have a feisty Gizmo. Political then. Some of the most challenging moments. Hardest, Andy. You start off. Low lights. Political.
Oh shit. I would say the isolation, political isolation. Like, okay, I'm not going to say I know exactly my situation, but as a person who is who basically thinks that COVID is like the flu, and that is best understood as kind of like the flu, who thinks that masks don't help, and that I see them as political symbols of subjugation more than something that protects us, and that I don't really see other Marxists who look at that. My analysis of this thing is much more closer to libertarian, the people who believe in the New World Order kind of stuff. And I don't believe in New World Order. I'm a Marxist. It's been isolating to really I was on Eduardo. We started this because I was out, I was kind of on my own, and now I'm more on my own than I was when we started. In terms of the terrain I am on the left, I think there are people on the left who probably think I'm now on the right. Like I'm on the right now. I don't agree, but that's what some people would say. And I lost some relationships, some political relationships through it, which I'm not happy about. But people just were outraged at the positions I was taking, and that's not fun. So the isolation sucked. I will say that every day going out and just seeing people walking around with masks on is sucks to high hell. That's almost personal, but politically, I just feel wow, they've just been able to get everyone to do, and the 6 feet of distance, everything, to see how easy it was to get people to do everything they were told to do. That has been quite mind bending, and also my fellow colleagues and teachers, in my mind, have largely abandoned what I believe was the project of education as a social experience, and that's been very demoralizing. So I think that has been some of the hardest political stuff, is just the complete isolation not complete, but the deep isolation I feel, and the loss also, we did episodes with Greg about, he and I were starting a kind of Marxist study group, and he and I have diverged on how we see this COVID moment, and we've been able to keep our friendship together and even keep a sort of a political association, but I think it's frayed because of it, and we're having trouble politically moving together, and I feel like that's unfortunate, because I was really excited about being able to kind of move forward with him, and I just think it's been hard. I don't think it's impossible, but I think we're moving farther apart, not closer together politically, and that's unfortunate. There's other thing. Politically, I have a real fear that the working class is being decimated, not just attacked, but as a collective unit, that the working class is being broken up. And I'm not sure of that, but it might I am wondering if in 10 years, if this continues, if it will be true, if the working class is still going to be a collective class. That makes me very afraid, because that's essential to Marxism and the possibility of socialist revolution, or the working class as an agent of change. And if that can be broken up, literally physically broken up, the working class no longer being a collective class, then then there's no Marxist route to revolution. And that's a bit of a challenge to me, and I'm nervous about that. So, Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is just to watch the left continue to go to the right, to love the state, to think that the Department of Defense and pharmaceutical companies and the national, what is it, the NHS, the Homeland Security, the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, are institutions that somehow can be trusted at all. They cannot. And to watch the left give them some level of faith as they say, "Oh, take your vaccine and Operation Warp Speed," but that's not true. They're fine. It's the anti-vaxxers who are the problem. That has been extremely disappointing to watch the left move to the right. Again, leftists won't see it that way, but that's how I see it. And it has been a very disappointing year politically for me to watch. I thought things were bad before, not just bad in terms of, oh, it's bad for people, but bad for those of us trying to organize. I thought the terrain was bad. I keep finding that there's no bottom to the floor. It keeps going down, down, and down, and things seem darker and darker and worse organized, and we're more suckers, we're more weak, we're more depending on the forces that are attacking us, and looking for them to save us, and that has been really challenging to experience that, and it's tested my sense of purpose on this. Although the good things have kept me afloat.
Yeah, politically then. So it was Andy and then Kenny. Kenny, would you like to share?
In similar ways, I do feel isolated. Like as if I'm, if I'm not crazy, I'm a right winger. By saying some similar things to Lipson, that basically a mask for me is a courtesy. We talked in another show as being like wearing a shirt, and mainly is to kind of be mindful of people's anxieties, other people, because although I don't agree with why the foundations of the anxiety, I understand that it manifests in real ways for them. But again, same thing is it's heartbreaking to see how much people flagellate, is that the right word, themselves, like hit themselves, deprive themselves from certain things. Because, even if this thing was somewhat as true as they claim it to be, as dangerous as they claim it to be, I think there is ways to go about our lives. However, I do see, and it's heartbreaking to see that by and large, everyone's just following whatever we're told. There is no agency at all from us. There is no sort of resistance. We are on, like I used in our previous episode, I feel like we're on our knees waiting for someone to save us, or in our captors to save us, to spare us. And so that is highly demoralizing. Even people that I get to have conversations and that actually do engage and do concede some of my points, or find some value in what I say, I turn around and they go back to the like the liberal storyline of anxiety and policing people, policing each other. And again, it's in also the difficulty of communicating, like Alison McDowell, like this future, right? Like what's coming, and people kind of dismissing it as like, basically you're not that important to the government. But I'm like, it's not about me, it's about all of us, and just, I guess, just tired of waving, your arms, like saying, some shit is coming, winter is coming. If anyone saw, like Game of Thrones, winter is coming, winter is coming. And there's little to no response. If nothing else, we're more subjugated, just like Lipson said. Yeah, and we are just, I feel, at least in my circle, ill-equipped to even begin to process things. So, and we're also like set up for these moments. It feels like a massive setup, where if you challenge, the vaccine or the statistics, you're an anti-science person because only the experts know. because the CDC is the highest authority on this BS, or the WHO. And in people being like in the medical industry, friends that I know, that are somewhat in there, just being soldiers, good soldiers, just following instructions, even though they know there's shit that does not app. They know that there's shit that is questionable. But again, it's just, I guess, I feel trapped. I feel like I'm in that corner, like in a crazy corner, just trying to see if anyone wants to talk. And so, yeah, isolation and, or, and again, it's not just by virtue of sounding crazy, but it's also by virtue of this being a lot to process, and getting started is, like I've like, again, I've been in situations where like I'm on the other side where it's just too much for me to process. So I can see why it's hard for someone else to begin to follow begin to pull the thread and get to the core of something, So, I mean, that's been like a major challenge. And at the same time, within our organizing groups in our community, dealing with the corrosive, destructive, self-defeating identity politics. The freaking bullshit, the petty bullshit that we deal in this community in San Francisco, of people trying to bully others, silencing others, censoring others, where we are in the same pile, in the same shithole, but we're throwing shit at each other, wasting energy, wasting precious energy that, we need to advance, and fight back in a real way, in a significant way. And so that is being highly frustrating for me in a low light. I gotten personal attacks by people that have wanted to accuse me of being transphobic or being, like sexist or defending white passing women, and in and at the same time, these people using the social capital for bullshit and just to bully others in our community. And I call them Trojan horses, really, in our communities. Advancing those same old ideas that will keep everyone screwed. Not just the people that they pretend to defend, but everyone. And so, just navigating through that, learning how to deal with that, in a space where I don't see much political action beyond reactive politics. Just trying to feed our community, trying to keep housing in our community. But again, we're just holding the roof that's caving. We're not really moving forward anywhere, and yeah, so it's not a good spot. It's for me. And I guess maybe I'll talk in the highlights. I mean, there are some glimmers of, like hope, I guess, maybe, but because where people want to engage, but at the same time, it's like we start a process. Like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's read the Communist Manifesto. Let's read, whatever revolutionary readings, but there's no follow up. There's no follow through. So that's kind of, self-defeating, because I'm not gonna feed anyone, force anyone to do this. Like, again, I'm looking for people that are gonna get punched and maybe push through, or at least take a punch, but it's hard when like they expect you to say this is fucked up and also give you the answers. Like, trying to explain that no, it's like for us to try to find answers for this, but we need to ask a different set of questions. But we're not even there, and people are afraid of, I don't know, for whatever reason. But that's kind of like the lowlights for me politically.
Well, I'm glad you both shared first, because it did stir up some things for me as well, politically. I think this year has been the most transformative for me politically than in past years. I had done this What's Left with Andy, and at that time I considered myself to be a progressive, and I still see myself as being more politically progressive, that will vote sometimes for Democrats if necessary, or align myself with certain political groups that are on the left, just so that we could potentially advance a cause and then transition over to a more radical transformative cause, which is socialism, or what I personally would love is a stateless society, but that have, again, those unresolved issues around those areas. And I don't proclaim myself to be a socialist. I've said many times on this podcast/channel that I'm a libertarian leftist, and with Chomskyan values. But this has been a transformative year, and some of the old ways of thinking have changed because of experiences that I've had, as well as through conversations that the three of us have had this year. And thanks to Kenny being an integrative part of this year, where Kenny before was participatory, but this year solidified a lot of our conversations, as because I don't think you even missed once, except for the few times of scheduling and stuff like that, Kenny, that we had ones, I think, with Tracy Burton, Stephen Rico. But I think the entire year you were with us. So we had very hard conversations sometimes. And so I had to think about some things, and I've changed on some positions. Being an example of that would be COVID. An example of that would be the census, where after Allison, I got freaked out, and then questioning a lot of things, such as the Jeffrey Epstein episode that we did, Andy, where I just very skeptical of conspiracists, to Eric Lerner being maybe a pivotal moment for me. He's a scientist that we interviewed, where I thought maybe I need to pay attention a bit more before I just dismiss people immediately. So the challenges for me have been having the conversations that I've been having here offline, and having those conversations with friends is challenging. The way that both of you talk, well, I don't know how you talk with your friends outside. I know Andy sometimes doesn't, but always edit himself. But the two of you, the way that you share on this platform isn't the way that I share offline. And I'm not sure how you share Kenny outside, right? I'm just saying that I don't share this way, the way, right, that we share here. I'm more careful. I try to be articulate and compassionate and not dismissive. And I try myself to be very non-threatening, such as today. I just quickly said that the rate of COVID deaths are very low, and my friend immediately looked at me, and I said, "Well, you can look it up. Even the CDC reports a lot of this stuff," and so she didn't know how to respond to that. So the challenges have been around my friendships. People that aren't close friends but are acquaintances and run in the same circles of having done work together, either in a union or campaigns. And how do I talk about things that are very controversial? I'm not sure if I'm ready to say, as bravely as Alison said, that COVID isn't an immediate emergency. How did she put it in that, Andy?
She basically says, no, I think the emergency section of COVID is over. Like if it was an emergency, that period is over. It's no longer the health emergency it was. She was speaking to the digital fourth industrial revolution emergency that she's trying to speak to.
Yeah. So I prefer her words over your words saying this is just the flu. So those are the challenges for me. And I've gotten into very heated conversations with folks who feel I'm being dismissive, who feel I'm endangering their lives, who feel that I'm not being considerate. And the only thing that has saved me so far is just referring to France, Spain, and England that have kept schools reopened. And what can they say? Because those are normally progressive. Bernie Sanders points to those kind of countries. So every time I say that, that's how I defend myself. And I say, I would like schools to reopen the way that France is reopening schools, the way that Spain has left the schools opened, the way that England is currently doing it. And people don't know what to say that, my progressive friends, because how can they attack such progressive countries? So, and I don't come off as Trump, right? I don't say things like that. But that's the challenge. That's the challenge with me politically. And I will say the challenge I face sometimes in being in association with you two and in association with Jake. Sometimes people think that this podcast last channel, I was just talking to someone, another friend that I saw in the Excelsior, and she said that what is this becoming? What is this podcast last channel becoming? And we're gaining more subscribers, more views, but this is also not appealing to a lot of my personal friends. Maybe to others it is, and that's the following we're getting, but not some of friends have stopped listening. They just feel this is, the way that you talk about stuff, Andy. Kenny says some things, and so the challenge is just staying here with both of you by association and trying to. I feel sometimes, I'm not saying you're Trump, but you know how Trump sends out these tweets and then Kellyanne Conway sort of explains the way the tweets. That's how I feel sometimes when you say something and I have to sort of lighten it a bit or try to give it a different angle or try to say something that...
Too late, Eduardo. You're going to jail with us.
Jesus. And feeling isolated politically. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, one of my former students who's contacted me has actually checked out some of our episodes and he liked some of them. He actually said, "Hey, Libsyn, why do you hold back so much in these episodes?" I'm like, what the heck? I asked Brady, I said, "Brady, am I holding back on these episodes?" She goes, "No, you're just on the edge of sounding crazy." But one of my students thinks that I'm holding back here, so I don't know what to say.
What are you doing classes now?
Oh Lord.
So the best moments, and I'll start off, because that's what's on the list. The best moment, I think, is knowing that now I'm seeing Kenny, you, Andy, AJ, and Allison as sort of my group where I might have to lean on to. This is what I just came to conclusion just a week ago. As sort of my group to lean in to politically, where I would like to this year expand what's left. I don't know what that means. Our conversations might be on maybe more historical things on Marxism or what to do, or maybe calling out stuff. I don't know. And maybe it means Kenny and I speaking in Spanish and start to appealing to a Spanish language audience. I don't know, Kenny. We can talk about that later. I don't know. But I'm beginning to see what's left as a group to turn to, having AJ come back, and having Allison and any other guest that feels compelled that we should work together. I think that's the highlight of having been isolated but close in a way. No, yeah, that's it. And maybe doing some article writing, I don't know, on Medium or something where we can do something together. That's where I would like to expand elsewhere. I know we have differences, but I think if we, it's like a Venn diagram, right? Like the three of us here, if we just focus on the areas that we agree on, where we can work on, there's a lot that I think we agree on already. And I certainly am an anti-capitalist. I don't see capitalism as a savior. and yeah, so I'll leave it there.
Well, I agree with you, Eduardo, that like I'm really grateful, and this continuing to do what's left and what we've done here. I'm just very grateful for being able to come here each week, and kind of reconnect and reassess it, and just create this place to do this. And so that has been a big bright spot. I think our continuation and growth. I think I don't know if we're getting a new. There's been some numeric, but I just feel like we as a group have grown, and that is really gratifying to me. I think the relationship we made with Allison, with Eric Lerner, about who doesn't think the Big Bang happened, and now I don't think the Big Bang happened. Like that was like a big like what the hell? Like he just came in and said, no, that thing that all of you have been told it was true and that was not up for discussion didn't happen. It's like well, and then not your friend Jake, but Jake Klychek, I think he and I have continued to talk and to be able to stay in discussion. This is true with Allison, but also with Jake. I think Jake is probably more of an example of people who come from that framework of New World Order kind of thing, globalists, George Soros, the skulls and bones, that sort of understanding of what's going on. That I don't necessarily share that framework, but it's really been helpful to use his research, which I do think is his research into what's going on in education has really illuminated what's really taking place. And that's obviously true with Allison, but it's opened a window for me to speak to people who people would associate with the right, and to then be in dialogue about, okay, here's my framework as a Marxist. What about your framework? And we're starting those discussions. And I that's really valuable to me to be able to do that with him. I hope to do that more. And I think that's kind of why I am excited about having Rob and your friend Jake, and possibly the other person, kind of check out our episodes every once in a while, whether they be debates or what have you, about people who kind of associate themselves more with the right. I think that's meaningful and will be helpful to the overall cause that we all share of a transformed world. And AJ and our reassociation and political reassociation is key for me. Like that has been a big development, and both through what's left, but also in what the work we're doing in our teachers union, our teachers work. That's a big deal for me to be able to be in connection with her, and then possibly the starting up of a group of teachers around this stuff to challenge the mainstream narrative around what's going on in education, and to take it to understanding that there's a bigger thing, a bigger change is taking place in the structure of the economy and in the what I think is this fourth industrial revolution, data mining world that we're going towards. That's a big deal. I would say that Brian and I, being able to manage this year both through our political differences and kind of come together a little bit, but also we've been in different places, but we've really been able to continue to grow personally, but also politically together. And I really appreciate that. He's also a Marxist, and I think we may do some writing together. We're going to see, but I think that would be a good thing, to try to look at what I'm learning from people like Allison and Jake, and to try to see if we can understand it and express it in terms of make some basic Marxist analysis. I think that could be valuable, and actually to have these discussions with Brandy. Brandy has looked into some of the stuff. We don't agree on some stuff, but we actually do agree on quite a bit of things that are important, and that has been really neat to be able to share that with her. So I think those for me have been political highlights. But again, I want to just say I'm grateful to have this space to talk with both of you, Kenny and Eduardo, and I'm looking forward to doing it next year.
So political highlights. Yeah, like I mentioned before, I was able to be part of launching this community org. It's not quite, like a politically militant organization, but it has opened the space to voice my convictions. It has like exposed me to some people that um, potentially disagree with me, and I've been able to make some points, and so they've kept interested in what I have to say. Even if they disagree at times. But that has opened up again, expanded a little bit my the my political views, and challenge them and being able to answer questions, because we have discussion groups occasionally, and I've been able to be out of the closet, socialist, Marxist, and so that has been a very good highlight, because it shows me that there are some people that, even though they are not as committed as, some of the people that we mentioned on the show, they know they want answers. They know there's something odd with something that doesn't add up, something that is not satisfying with the mainstream, storylines. And so that's been very valuable to me, again, to create my political identity. I'm still evolving. I'm still learning a lot about Marxism and socialism. Um, and again, this also show has, I look forward to every Wednesday, or every time we record, because this is where I'm able to, process my madness, the things that I have in my head, every day, and that don't always have a safe space to be, unleashed. But I'm here with two powerful people that, we'll debate, and we'll challenge, and we'll disagree, and you know and not always become very personal. And if it does, we still flesh it out. Talking about you two.
You're trying to create problems.
Sometimes I feel like I'm between mom and dad, or but still,
we should mention that before, Kenny used to be in the middle. If people look at our earlier episodes where Andy and I were on the side. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I think there's value in that, in being able to, again, have a safe space. I think that was your intention of starting this show. And so that for me has allowed me to evolve, being exposed to all these people, Allison, AJ, Jake, Eric, Brian, everyone, with the Rob and Jake, the Trump supporters that we interviewed. It just has nuance. It helps me continue to evolve and not stay stuck, and and just be challenged. And I think that's I value that a lot, because I don't know where I'm heading necessarily. I don't know if I'll be, somewhat as militant as I am now in terms of my convictions. I don't know. I don't know what shape it's gonna take, but it is valuable to me now. And so, again, I am grateful that I have this great privilege of doing this on this show, and on a weekly basis, and again, I allowed my political growth, and in helping me find my own voice. So again, that's the biggest highlight. I mean, also my family. They're not just family; they're also comrades to me. My mother. We talk shop, talk union, talk politics. She questions myself. My brother too. He has his own convictions. I was saying earlier, they're the toughest customers I have, because they don't just take shit, for what I say. They challenge it, they question it, and then it helps me better explain what I'm thinking. I mean, even if I'm not right, I'm just trying to explain what my concerns are, and so again, that's been a highlight, because I see the change that we've together, going through, evolving, talking through these things together, because I'm no longer, similar to Alice, and I'm a recovering liberal. I'm no longer talking at them. I'm no longer wagging my finger. I respect them, more to be able to listen to them and challenge them and not try to educate them, and um, yeah, so yeah, it's been a year for me, a very good year for my political evolution. And so even though it's not full of promise, like personally, it's liberating that I'm able to voice what I have to say in, not unapologetic. You know, this is what I think. If you don't agree, well, whatever. you know. Uh,
I should say though, we are now at 200 subscribers on YouTube, and we were very slow, and then there's been a peak.
Yeah,
we'll lose some and gain some. So it's where do we find, I guess, the niche of people that we're trying to also organize with or work with? I don't know. That came up for me. That what's left has also grown as a result of the three of us.
you were going to say other YouTubers have done something with our channel.
They have commented. I've been looking at our comments and also looking at some of I'll show you has talked. I thought you responded to one of them.
Oh, that might be the
say
Book
keep
of
up
Hours
the good
people?
work. They said something.
Yeah.
Huh?
The Book of Hours people.
Yeah. There's also
That's true.
a small YouTube channel, and I saw that. And there I feel we are slowly, and I don't, we're doing this with the algorithms really against us, right?
Yeah.
But we're slowly coming up to a point where we're going to meet what's called left tube, right? Which is all the socialist, progressive conversations that are having with big following. What did you call it? And Kenny, social capital? Is that? I don't even know what social capital is. That what it's called?
I just call it that. Just like being able to have some influence on things, and
yeah.
No, because when you reach a certain number of followers, more people, and then it has some.
Yeah, there's Philosophy Tube, there's Bosch, there is not the Young Turks. I would say that they're more of a mainstream now, but on YouTube, right? But there are the Three Arrows YouTuber, which sort of are all these leftists, radical leftists that have conversations, and also ContraPoints. And she's trans, but she's not. She doesn't vote Democrat, and she also has a lot of criticisms, and she also understands transphobia and talks about transphobia. So they've tried to cancel her out. And so anyhow, I feel like we're rising there. That's just I saw that.
Yeah.
Which is good, because one of the things that I think we have wanted, mostly you, Andy, at first, and now I think also Kenny, is the need to organize. You're sending out that signal, right? Yeah. So more people means more people will be able to be in tune to what you both have to say, and maybe me. But I know that was a big thing for you, Andy. You wanted to do is really put out a signal out there, right? Mm-hmm. Like the alien calling or something, to see if they respond back. No. And I imagine that's the same for you too, Ken. You want to organize with like-minded people.
I was even thinking that there is some like local, or there's some like other podcasts that I'm interested in. Maybe like reaching out to kind of have an exchange, just an exchange of ideas. Would be interesting. Maybe in this coming year.
Yep,
I think so, Kenny. If you have some suggestions, you should. Yeah, if you can organize it. I think, yeah. Like the interviews that Andy has also.
Yeah, and I think I have been a little bit more this year. I've used it a bit more as an organizing space, which I think will definitely more this year than any other previous year, which I'm glad about, and we'll see if we can do it in the future. And one thing I want to say, while I'm obviously I'm grateful to work with all of you, Eduardo, I do want to acknowledge, I think what you've done to stay on what's left is fairly remarkable. You've had to deal with me, you've had to deal with Kenny, you've had to deal with your friends and your background, and you stay in the pocket. It doesn't mean you don't change, but I am very grateful for your courage to stand your ground and to continue to be honest about what's really what you agree with, what you don't agree with. I know it's led to moments where you and I, as Kenny noted, have had our difficulties even in the episode. But I'm grateful for us being able to resolve those things. Sometimes not on air, but later.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Eduardo, I have a lot of respect for what you've done here. I think not. I don't know if there's anybody I know who could put up with go through with what you're going through and put yourself in a position of both vulnerability while being strong at the same time. It's something that I hope to be able to do on my own. I hope to be able to do something that I see you doing. But I don't think I've been tested in that way. So I really want to say, you've got my respect and honor. You know, it's an honor to be on the show and to see you doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
To receive the punches from two people. Yeah.
Yes. I'm kidding. And to come back every week and to deliver.
Kenny's quite nice.
Yeah.
I don't think the show would be as, I guess, three-dimensional, if you weren't here. So don't become a socialist, or we'll have to make choices and replace you.
Sorry. Yeah, we're not letting you in the club. Sorry, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess it's been great working with both of you too. I have had low points where I haven't shared with you, Andy, personally, or I haven't even shared with Kenny, but because I did feel at some point anything I shared was just met with hostility. Anything I shared, anything about this, anything of that, it was just like, oh, why even share? Here I'm excited to share something and bam, knocked down, No, it's okay, because that's this spirit, because I love that we're able to hold this space to have challenging conversations.
Question, is that what you mean by unresolved issues with socialism?
No.
That's unresolved issues with socialists, not socialism.
Yes, that's true. With socialists, two socialists. Just so that you can prepare, we'll do an episode soon. But my unresolved issues is the state. I think once I say that, Kenny, you'll know where I'm heading with that. Just the state. I think my unresolved issues means mostly with the state. And as I understand it, Alison also has issues around that too. It's with the state. So I think we're both very open to socialist ideas, but it's the state where I'm really afraid. Anyhow.
I'm afraid of the state too, don't worry. And that's why I'm a socialist.
Yeah. It's hard to...
There's a lot there, Eduardo. There's a lot to talk about there. So
yeah. Right. Should we conclude?
Yeah.
Right.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year. It's the 30th today. That does it for this week's episode. What's Left is a weekly political podcast that's challenging the mainstream left. We post information about our topics and our guests on the episode notes wherever you found this episode, or on our blog at what-s-left-webnode.com. You can find past episodes to this podcast channel there and connect with us. I remind folks that if you like anything you have heard here, please share your favorite episode, rate, review, and subscribe to and turn on your notifications onto any of our 6 platforms on iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, Bitchute, or YouTube. And if you would like to give us feedback about something you've heard or suggest something for us to cover, contact us through our blog. And Andy will contact you, respond back. I'm Eduardo Barca with co-hosts Kenny Cepeda and Andy Lipson. Catch you all next time.